Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Sayers, and I have the privilege of serving as the CEO of the National Disability Research Partnership. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm joining you today from the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and very pleased to be on this beautiful lands in Sydney today. Just a bit of a visual description of me. I'm a white woman in my 50s with medium length blondish hair, and I'm wearing a black and cream top. I've got glasses, and I have blue eyes. Before we get too far into this, I would really like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands which we're meeting across Australia today. We know that we're on First Nations land and we respect First Nations people from this land. On this land, we live, work, play, and dream together. First Nation people have lived here for many, many years, and we now all share this land. We honour and respect all First Nations people and elders, and I want to show my respect for all First Nations people joining us today and recognise the important contributions they make to their communities and to our work together in the disability sector. So please feel free to acknowledge in the chat the lands you're joining from across Australia. It's always lovely to see where everyone is coming from and see those lands. So before we begin, I just wanted to mention that today's session is being run on Zoom in a meeting format, not in a webinar. And this means you may see other participants on your screen, and you have the option to adjust your view and settings to suit your preferences. You'll note that we're also recording this session. This will only be the first bit before we get into the question and answer section. So if you'd like to change your view or pin a speaker, you can go to gallery view or speaker view and then click on the view button in the top right corner of your screen to switch between speaker view, which highlights the active speaker, and gallery view, which shows multiple participants at once. Pinning a speaker or interpreter. If you want to keep a particular speaker or Auslan interpreter on your screen, hover over their video, click on the three dots that you'll see, and then it says more, and then select Pin Video. If you need any help adjusting your settings, feel free to ask in their chat. Our team is here to assist you, which includes Sue and Jess, who are waving at the moment. And just a few accessibility reminders. As part of our commitment to supporting best practices in accessibility and inclusion, we are working to embed accessible ways of working in everything we do, including sessions like this. So please note, as I said before, the session is being recorded, so those who can't hear this information or be part of it today are able to see it online. And parts of it will be available on our website for others to access and for you to share with your colleagues. So you can turn on live captions. They're available for this session. You can turn them on or off by selecting CC or live transcript button in your Zoom toolbar at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to use the chat and to share your thoughts and to ask questions. Just asking if you could be mindful of others in the chat. We'll have a 10-minute break during the session. If you need to step away at any time, feel free to do so. Also, feel free to turn off your camera. At the end of the day, I know I experience a lot of screen fatigue, so we will not be worried if you turn off your camera. And if you need any additional assistance during the sessions, you can privately message Sue from the NDRP in the chat. We really want to make this a great session. So let's go over what we're going to be covering today. So first, we'll introduce the National Disability Research Partnership. We'll highlight our strategic agenda and guiding principles and emphasise our commitment to research by and with people with disability. We'll also explain the Disability Research Leadership Program, its purpose, and how it fits within the NDRP's broader capacity strengthening work. Excuse me. Then we'll spend roughly 30 minutes talking through the application guidelines, including the expected outcomes, the types of funding available, and how participants will be supported throughout the program. I will also explain how applications will be assessed and what to expect from the program year. Then we'll take a short break. And after the break, we'll be responding to the questions that attendees have already submitted prior to this event. And if there's time, we'll also respond to additional questions you may have. And we'll wrap up with a few key takeaways, a link to the post-session evaluation survey. We really love your feedback. This is the first time we're running this program, and we really want your feedback to help us always improve. So we'll go to the next slide. I'm sure by now many of you have heard about the NDRP, or you wouldn't have been here. You wouldn't be here already, but what drives our work and how it connects to the Disability Research Leadership Program is really important. I'll cover our strategic agenda and guiding principles. And I'll explain how the program, the leadership program, links to our efforts to invest in researchers with disability to build high impact and meaningful careers. So the NDRP has a number of aims. We aim or we exist to build an inclusive national disability research program. At the core, we really want impactful research that addresses the priorities of people with disability, their families and communities. And we do this by funding research that's informed by the research agenda, enabling inclusion and participation, and we want research that promotes full inclusion and meaningful participation across all aspects of life. Building capacity for inclusive research, and this means not just conducting research about people with disability, but empowering people with disabilities to lead and co-create the research. And then driving evidence into action. We're really committed to ensuring the outcomes inform policies, practice, and systems that deliver real-world benefits. And these objectives are critical because they align with our broader national priorities, including we're an initiative of Australia's disability strategy, which sets a vision for an inclusive society where people with disability are engaged, supported, and valued. So as I mentioned, our guiding principles drive everything that we do. Research that's by and with people with disability. And we really aim to shift the paradigm. People with disability are not just participants in research, they're leaders, co-creators and decision makers throughout the process. Collaboration across sectors. We foster partnerships between researchers, organisations, government, people with disability to ensure the work is both inclusive and impactful. Equity and justice. Our projects are designed to challenge systemic barriers and promote fairness across systems, recognising the intersectional nature of disability experiences. And then knowledge translation, translating the research findings into actionable outcomes. And that's that last value, that we are really keen that research is making a difference, that it's not sitting in a university where no one uses it, that it's really being used by government and policymakers. So our research agenda outlines the 12 key areas which were developed from the priorities of people with disability. And we'll pop a link to the research agenda in the chat, as many of you might be familiar with this if you've already read the guidelines. But as you'll see, these areas are very broad and all mattered to people with disability who were consulted in the development of the agenda. And we'll come to this a little bit later when we're talking about the application, because we've had a lot of questions about this. All of them are often interrelated. So you can't talk about some elements, so safety of people with disability. You can't talk about that without considering health and wellbeing, or the NDIS, or education and learning. They're all interlinked, but we've just organised it in a way that is easy to see what the priorities are. We also have 5 underpinning themes of the research agenda: upholding the rights of people with disability. We're led and guided by the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, focusing on safety, addressing ableism and improving attitudes, understanding that intersectionality is an absolute priority, as well as applying a gendered lens. So applicants in the program will need to show how their research studies relate to the research agenda, the underpinning themes and the NDRP principles. We've had many questions about this. So we'll come to these in the Q&A session, and we'll look forward to that more interactive dialogue. So let's take a quick look at the purpose of the Disability Research Leadership Program. We've established this program to recognise and support emerging and early career researchers with disability. Too often, talented students and researchers with disability miss out on career pathways and leadership opportunities because universities tend not to recognise disability as a strength. And that's a lost opportunity for universities and the research community. So this program, our first intake, was shaped by consultations with past and current PhD and master's Masters by Research students with disability who shared their experiences of some of the barriers, but what importantly would support them to make the biggest difference in their research or other careers. So this program addresses these gaps with flexible financial support tailored to your individual needs. It connects you with peers and creates opportunities for professional development, learning, and leadership growth. And we're hoping that together we're supporting the next generation of disability leaders who shape the evidence base. The evidence base that informs policy and practice. And we will have 2 intakes. Our first intake is the current one for Masters and by Research and PhD students. And our second intake will be for postdoctoral research students, which will open next year. I'm now going to hand over to my lovely colleague, Jess, who's going to go through the program in more detail.
Jess speaking. Thanks so much, Mary, and thank you all for being here. I'm Jess. I'm the Engagement in Events Coordinator at NDRP. I'm a white, non-binary person in my 30s. I've got long, dark blonde hair and I'm wearing a blue jumper. And I live and work on Wurundjeri land in Naarm, Melbourne. I've been involved in developing the Disability Research Leadership Program almost from the beginning, so it's really exciting for me to see it launched and to have received a lot of interest in it already. So before I get into the details, I wanted to go over the key information. So applications have already opened and they close on the 3rd of December at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Application decisions will be communicated in mid-February. The application guidelines are available on our website in plain language and Auslan versions. And other information you'll find on our website are the frequently asked questions, a couple of templates to support your application, and also the assessment information. So how the assessment panel is going to be reviewing the applications. So if you have questions after this session, please do check the website because we'll be updating the information there as it's needed and as questions come through. Okay, so Mary's already spoken about our strategic agenda and guiding principles and how we've developed this program through consultation with students with disability. So the 1-year program provides flexible support to higher degree students with disability whose research aligns with NDRP's research agenda and who are ready to grow as leaders. The program will support up to 8 higher degree students with disability who are committed to working in line with NDRP's guiding principles. So I want to go over what the intended outcomes of the program are. They're to reduce barriers that can prevent researchers with disability from completing their studies, conducting research, or progressing their careers. To support the development of career pathways for researchers with disability into academic, policy, advocacy, and practice fields. And to strengthen Australia's capacity to deliver disability-led and inclusive research that informs policy and practice. For participants, the intended outcomes of the program are to connect with a community of peers to share and learn from each other, to provide professional learning opportunities and connections with other key people in government, policy and practice, disability research, and disabled persons and representative organisations that they might not have otherwise had access to strengthen practice in high quality, disability-led and inclusive research that has an impact on disability policy and practice, and to raise their profile and career opportunities through their participation in the program. For the NDRP, the organisational outcomes are to support research activities that are aligned with our principles and our research agenda, to build an evidence base of the barriers and enablers for higher degree research students with disability through the evaluation of the program learning, develop resources and guidance to support universities, funders, and research supervisors to provide accessible, flexible, and supportive environments for higher degree students with disability, to improve the recognition of researchers with disability in the research sector for their expertise and contributions, and to strengthen pathways for researchers with disability into leadership roles in academia, policy, and practice. So those are the outcomes. In terms of what this program is offering in supporting students, for the program, the NDRP will be running a community of practice and also other professional learning and development opportunities. These sessions are all going to be held online, and they'll be designed based on participants' needs. So the reason that we don't have sort of a list of what it looks like right now is because we want to develop it with the selected oh my goodness, I'm having that thing where I've forgotten my words. With the successful applicants. So for example, if there's a real interest in inclusive participation, we're going to be basing our community of practice and any of the learning and development opportunities around that strong focus. Successful applicants will be expected to attend at least 6 of the community of practice sessions over the span of the year, and we believe this requirement will help ensure the success of the program. All right, let's move on to funding. So there are 2 types of funding. There's the financial support and the professional development funding. Successful applicants are going to be able to access both of these funding buckets. So the financial support funding is the $15,000 that will be provided to the student to help support them with their living costs throughout the year-long program. The funding will be paid to the participant quarterly in advance, and there's no acquittal required on that bucket of funding. The professional development funding is up to $15,000 of flexible professional development funding that's available per student to support their research and career development. And it may be used for activities that will strengthen the impact of research or support the student's professional development. So we've got some examples of what the professional development funding can be used for. It might be travel, accommodation, and registration to attend or present work at conferences, any training, mentoring, or professional development courses, knowledge translation or knowledge mobilization costs, placements or collaborations with a disability representative organisation, equipment that can't be funded from other sources such as the NDIS or your university, activities that strengthen involvement or leadership of people with disability in the research project, or accessibility related activities for participants who are involved in your research. So again, I'll say that this list is only a guide. You don't, at the time of application, you don't need to provide a detailed budget of how the funds will be used. Instead, what we'd like you to do is provide an overview of how you plan to use the funding to support your research and professional goals. This should include a summary of the types of activities you plan to undertake and how those activities or supports link to your goals. Successful applicants can access these funds through a short application form that they'll have access to after they've been selected and at any time during the program. What the professional development funding can't be used for are tuition fees, university overheads, costs that other parts of government pay for, such as the NDIS or Medicare, general living costs, or any accessibility adjustments that should be provided by the university. All right, so that's it on funding. Let's move on to eligibility criteria. To be eligible for the program, applicants must meet the following requirements: be enrolled full-time or part-time in a Masters by Research or PhD program at an Australian university, be an Australian citizen or permanent resident, have at least 1 year of their program of study remaining as at February 2026, be a person with disability, give consent to being identified as being a participant in the Disability Research Leadership Program in our public communications, be working on a research project with objectives and outcomes aligned with the NDRP's principles and research agenda, and contributing to the lives of people with disability. Commit to engaging in the program activities and the evaluation of the program, and providing a letter of support from one of your academic supervisors for the research degree. That's one of the things that we've got a template for. The letter should confirm your enrolment and your supervisor's support for your participation in the program. So as I said, you must meet all of these criteria to be eligible for the program. If you're unsure whether you are eligible on any of these points, please do send us an email or give us a call to discuss your situation. We don't want you making an assumption that you're not eligible without talking to us. We're always happy to have those conversations just to be absolutely sure. Okay, so The final thing that I wanted to go through were the documents that are needed in your application. So leading up to applying, you're going to need to prepare your academic CV and also a letter of support from your supervisor. If you don't have an academic CV or you want some support in updating your current one, we've provided a template that you can download from the website. Please note that it's just a guide. If there's a section that doesn't apply to you, just leave it out. One of the questions we got yesterday as well was about the section in the CV template about referees. Now, we've included that because it would be a normal thing to have in your academic CV, and we want you to be able to use this template for a CV that you would use outside of the program. But those referees won't be contacted in regard to your application. The other template that we've provided is for the letter of support from your supervisor. We've done this to make sure it's as easy as possible for you and your supervisor. Again, they don't need to use the template document to write their letter of support, but we do want them to include each of the points that's listed in that template in their letter. So it'll be good for them to at least look over it before they write it. So again, both of those templates can be downloaded from the website. You might also, need to start that sentence again. I mucked up my pause. You might also upload some further documents as supporting information in your application. Mary will get to that next as we talk through the assessment criteria. Okie dokie. So I'll hand over to you, Mary, now to go through how the applications will be assessed.
Mary speaking, and thank you. Took a little while to turn everything back on. So wanted to go through the assessment criteria and explain a little bit about what strong applications might look like. So applications will be assessed against the criteria questions in the application guideline and on the application form. And an assessment information document has recently been added to the key documents list on the website. So make sure you have a look at that as well. So the connection of your work to the NDRP principles and research agenda. This criterion looks at how well your research connects to the principles and agenda and how your work can contribute to positive change for people with disability. Strong applications will clearly explain the research topic and its purpose, show strong alignment with the NDRP principles and one or more of the research agenda areas, describe the potential benefits of the research for people with disability, including a realistic assessment of the impact it may have on policy, practice, or programs. Explain how you engage with or plan to engage with people with disability and their lived experiences. Applications who've been unable to do that because of the stage of research you're at or because of other constraints will not be penalised if you haven't. And this is what the leadership program is for, to help you to do research that's led by and with people with disability. Outline how participation in the leadership program will help increase the reach and impact of your work or the involvement of people with disability in your work, and explain how you plan to share the research findings with people with disability and the wider community in accessible ways, but also demonstrate an understanding of inclusion, accessibility and co-design in your approach. So the second criteria is the potential impact of the program on you and your career, because this is a leadership program. This criterion looks at how participation in the program will support your research, builds your leadership and research skills, and contributes to your long-term career development. Strong applications will explain how participation in the program will help you potentially overcome barriers and complete your higher degree. Outline how you plan to use the program's funding to support your research and professional goals. And as Jess mentioned, we don't need a detailed budget for that, just how you think you might use the funds if you were successful. Describe how the program will help you grow as a leader in research and how these skills might support your future career goals. And show how you will use what you learn to contribute to disability-led and inclusive research in the future. And clearly link your participation in the program with increased research impact and professional development. The next criteria is experience and readiness to make the most of this opportunity. And this criterion looks at your readiness and commitment to make the most of the program and the skills and perspectives and experiences you'll bring to the leadership program. Strong applications will demonstrate a commitment to building a career in disability research, policy or systems, provide examples of relevant skills, experiences or perspectives that will enrich the program and cohort. Show readiness and motivation to engage with others and your peers and mentors and people with disability to share learning and ideas. And describe how you plan to participate fully and make the most of the opportunities available through the program. And this is the section Jess was mentioning for other information. You might think there's some other information that's really valuable that wasn't covered in the selection criteria. And that's the optional bit where you can add additional information that might support your application. We've left it pretty short, only a short amount of words, up to 300 words. Really, it's just anything you think you want us to know. So in terms of the form timelines, and I'll get the next slide up soon. As you know, the form is currently open and applications can be submitted, and it closes on the 3rd of December at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. We'll have a selection panel who convenes and assesses applications, and then final decisions will go to the board for approval. The program starts in March 2026 and finishes in March 2027. So in terms of how we're going for time, we've been going okay for time, I think, Jess. Jess might give me, I think we're ready for a break. Is that correct, Jess? And so we're going to have a 10-minute break. It's 5:35 p.m. where I am, so add 10 minutes to where you are, and feel free to have a break, and we'll look forward to joining you for the Q&A session after the break.